How you doing, everybody? Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of Fenway Faithful. How you doing, everybody? Welcome to tonight's show. Hope everyone had a great weekend. I guess the Pats didn't look all that good today, so sorry about that. But we got some Red Sox to talk about here tonight. We had quite a weekend of news here. We have a lot to dive into tonight. We got a full show here tonight. We got Juan Soto to talk about. Raffy Devers popped up in the news over the weekend, along with a guy named Nolan Arenado. That sparked some debate on Twitter land today. Also, is my audio working? Okay, the audio is working. Ever since that happened, a couple streams ago, I'm very hesitant about the microphone now, or hesitant about just going forward without double checking, triple checking the microphone. Anyway, glad that's working. But yeah, Nolan Arenado to talk about. Alex Bregman was also in the news, and we got a little Garrett Crochet, Max Fried to talk about here. So full show, stacked show, lots to talk about. Before I do get started, everyone, if you can, just hit that like button for me. Subscribe if you are new. And also, check out the last video that I just posted, literally about 30 minutes ago. 5 reasons why Juan Soto is a perfect fit for the Red Sox. Go check that out after tonight's show, whenever you get a chance. Worked pretty hard on that. I thought that was a pretty fun video, and I think you'll enjoy it. So, speaking of Juan Soto, let's get to the news here. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, the Juan Soto sweepstakes are about to heat up, and we got some big news here today from Buster Olney. Buster Olney telling us that we are about to be getting contract offers this coming week. So we've been hearing all about the meetings going back over the last week or so, last couple of weeks. Obviously, the Mets, the Yankees, the Red Sox, those were headline news, those teams getting meetings. Obviously for us Red Sox fans, that was huge, right? We'll talk about the David Ortiz aspect in just a little bit here. But the Blue Jays are also involved, the Dodgers, the Phillies, and for this coming week here, according to Buster Olney, sources involved in the Juan Soto talks expect the teams will begin forwarding offers this week. To date, the process has been about Soto meeting with teams and club officials, and about those officials getting to know Soto. I see people out there saying, is this really that big of a deal? Does this really mean all that much? When you're paying attention to this whole thing, we were hearing the first initial rounds of meetings, right? Soto was impressed with a few of them, and we had some quotes, from the Yankee side of things, from Hal Steinbrenner, him basically saying, I don't know what's going to happen, right? We're going to be in the mix. We were following all that over the last couple of weeks. So yes, this is a big deal this coming week, especially for a player of this magnitude. When you have someone like Juan Soto on the market, you had Shohei Ohtani last offseason, but, go back. Really the last free agent that I think of where you had this many teams, in the mix. Last year, you look at Ohtani. Let's be real. It was basically the Dodgers from the get-go, right? That's where we all expected him to go. Yeah, had a couple other teams pop up in the mix, but the other team that was the biggest threat, it seemed, were the Blue Jays, and it looked like they were just used to drive up the offer in the end. He always wanted to go to LA. So, the last player that I can think of where he had multiple teams involved was Alex Rodriguez before he signed with the Rangers, right? You had, it was interesting to go back, look at news articles about that, going back to whatever it was, 2000. You had teams like the Mets were considered the favorite at the time. You had the White Sox involved at the time, like the Braves, even the Rockies were involved for Alex Rodriguez. Remember the Rockies? They were, trying to spend big around that time. Remember the big Mike Hampton contract that they ended up doing? Mike Hampton, he loved that school system. Anyway, but yeah, Alex Rodriguez, that was another one where you go back and that's what I compare this one to, right? This is a big deal. We're going to be seeing some I think, seeing some juicy stuff this coming week when it comes to certain proposals. I will say, I'm going to give you a warning in advance, right? For all the accounts out there that's on Twitter land, be very cautious in the reports that you see. I'm going to give you a big heads up on that. You got a lot of, the Latin reporters out there. They like to throw kind of stuff out there. A lot of people, not even just when I say Latin reporters, I mean, Marino Papen, where sometimes they throw some stuff out there and it kind of explodes in their face a little bit. But there's a whole bunch of other reporters out there as well. Just keep your eyes open for, getting verified reports out there, right? So just be cautious, right, with things that you see on Twitter. I guarantee you're going to start seeing, like, oh my goodness, the Yankee or the Mets have offered $700 million, right? Just be cautious, right? Look for the verified guys out there. Obviously we all understand at this point. Jeff Passan, when he says it, that is pretty much that's the golden rule of thumb to listen to Jeff Passan at this point. Where was I there? Now, when it came to David Ortiz this past weekend with the whole Juan Soto thing, David Ortiz, he made his rounds. He's doing a charity event this weekend with Poppy down in Florida. And, he was making his rounds, right? He was talking with the guys from Mass Live. He talked with Rob Bradford. I believe he spoke with the ITM podcast as well. But David Ortiz, he had a lot to say, pretty similar to what he was saying with all of them. But the big things that stuck out to me with David Ortiz is the way the team is trying to approach him. That is a good sign for me. Went on to say that he was going to be in the meeting with Juan Soto initially, but there was something going on with his dad, so he had to go take care of that. But that was the big part of kind of what stuck out to me, right? The way the team is trying to approach him, that is a good sign for me. There were a lot of comments, right? If I'm looking here, so when you're chasing someone like him, you have to be optimistic. You have to be confident. You have to mold the business around him and do whatever it takes to get a hold of someone like him. There were some other parts that he said here. He also touched on the phone call with Sam Kennedy. That was when Sam Kennedy was speaking with the media. Got a call from David Ortiz in the middle of it, and he ended up saying the conversation was based on some of the things related to what we are chasing. So he went on to say here, we realize that we have to get back to the winning days. We have to give the fans what they expect. We have to get back to the sellouts, which is a winning team on the field that can take us to the promised land. And the only way that's going to happen is by spending money. He also touched on how Juan Soto can be important in the clubhouse, right? He will be the guy that handles all sides in the clubhouse, saying that both the Latin and the American community in the clubhouse, right? He says here, that's what I used to do when I played, plus what you're capable of doing in the field. He's the one guy who has that profile. He's the one guy who can bring unity, good chemistry. We all saw it in New York. The guy changed everything in New York in just 1 year. So, he touched on a few things, right? They asked him, what would be your pitch, right? He said, you're going to play for an organization that has a lot of history. You're going to play for an organization that has the greatest fans. He's going to feel like he's going to be playing at home in the Dominican Republic. And he's going to have in his corner his godfather, Big Papi, right? So a lot of things that he touched on, listen, I've been saying this, for a bit now. I think the Red Sox are dead serious on this, right? When you've heard all the reports, when you've heard all the things coming from agents, right? The Red Sox, they seem to mean business this offseason, right? You take a look at the last few years. They've been rebuilding this farm. They haven't been going crazy with the payroll. They've been getting a little bit off of the payroll as well. I think signs point directly to the Red Sox, at least giving it a good spirited effort. We'll just have to wait and see in the end what they end up doing. Now, when it comes to this coming week, obviously, this is supposedly contract offer week. I don't think this is going to be done by the end of the week. I mean, who knows? Maybe. I don't know. But this is where the initial offers are going to be starting this week. So, the one question this offseason has been, what is the contract going to be for Juan Soto? Now, I did some math in my head. I even wrote it down in this little envelope here. All right, so Juan Soto, he just turned 26 years old, so he's going to be entering his age 26 season. Now, coming up with a contract, right? What are the dollars going to be? Now, I'm going to assume, I'm going to just say a 15-year deal that runs him through his age 40 season. I'll say that. I'll say a 15-year deal. Now, remember, remember the quote from Moneyball, the movie, right? The infamous quote, right? It's not the players that you're buying wins, right? So the way I put together my prediction for a Juan Soto contract is I look at the average cost per win, which right now is an average of around $8 million. So Juan Soto last year, he put together an 8-win season. At 25 years old, turning 26, that's very good. He's only just about to enter his prime. That's pretty scary, right? Obviously, Judge, he's put up phenomenal seasons over the last few years. But Judge, he's in his prime right now. Juan Soto is about to enter his prime. So I figured, kind of sticking more on the conservative side when it comes to the numbers. Age 26 to 32, 7 seasons total. I think he should be able to at least average a 7 wins above replacement per season on average. I think you're definitely going to see a mix of some of those seasons where he could be, 9, 10, maybe in that range, but then you also have to factor, are there going to be some injuries that pop up at some point? Could end up missing some time? Could a couple of years be, where, maybe, he staggers a little bit, falls back a little bit. We saw that, even with Judge last year, had the injuries and obviously, didn't have that same wins above replacement number. So I'm sticking on the conservative side. And from ages 26 to 32, I think he should be able to average 7 wins per season. 7, right? Times 7, if you were to get an average of 7 for the next 7 seasons, 49 wins, right? 49 wins times $8 million, 392. All right. So ages 33 to 34, I went down. I did 6 wins per season. So that's a total of 12. 12 times 8 is 96. 35 to 36, I did an average of 5 wins per season. He's getting older, so I'm predicting that the production is going to dip a little bit. Maybe one of those seasons could end up being, a 7, right? The other one ends up being like a 4, whatever. I think you'll see an average of 5 wins per season, ages 35 to 36. So 5 wins times 2, 10 wins times $8 million each, $80 million. Ages 37 to 38. I'll have that go down again. 4 wins per season. 8 wins total. 8 times 8, 64 million. I'm almost done. Bear with me. Ages 39 to 40. I have him averaging 3 wins per season. That's a total of $48 million. Add all that up in your head, right? I'm gonna do it right now on my trusty little calculator because I cannot do math in my head. So 392 for ages 26 to 32. So $392 million. Let me do the math. 392, 96 plus 80 plus 64 plus 48. I'm coming up with $680 million. $680 million over 15 years. I think he could very well get to that. I mean, because I'm going on the minimum side, right? I'm going conservatively when it comes to the projections that I'm coming up in my head, right? I'm not an expert by any means, but I think Juan Soto, over the next 15 years, 85 wins total. He's already at 36.3. I mean, he'd be one of the greatest of all time, right? 85 wins for 15 years. I think Juan Soto, with what he's shown up to this point, is very capable of that. I absolutely think he is. So I'm going to predict 15 years, $680 million. I know that sounds probably very crazy to a lot of people out there. I'm just going off of what I'm thinking projection-wise. $8 million per win, 85 times 8, right? 680. All right. So 680 over 15. But you got to start somewhere, right? You got to start somewhere. let's talk about the Mets. I think the Mets, uh, if I'm thinking of, I don't know, I'm trying to think of these teams' strategies here. The Mets, I think they're going to put forth a very strong offer to start things off. We've already gotten reports that they've already maybe thrown down 660. I don't know. I don't know how true that is. I don't think it was confirmed by anyone. I think actually we got confirmation that that wasn't true, right? So, but I think nonetheless, I think the Mets are going to open up with a very strong offer. Very. I would not be surprised. Steve Cohen, absolutely. He's here to play for the Yankees. And now, when it comes to the Yankees here, I think they're actually going to be probably a bit more conservative in the beginning. I think, they'll put a strong offer on the table first. I would look for the Yankees in the end, just like how it went with Aaron Judge, right? Hal Steinbrenner made the call and he got it done. It looked like he was going to the Giants, and all of a sudden Arson Judge went to the Giants, right? So I think the Yankees in the early going, I don't think you're going to hear much about them. I think you're going to hear about them in the end. I think the Blue Jays will actually put down a strong offer to start things off. I think they will. The Blue Jays. Now, I'm not saying that means that the likelihood of him going there, that's going to increase. I don't know. I don't think the Blue Jays have a lot going right now. When you look at farm system, Vlad, he's not even signed up for a long-term deal. I think when you look at it from those point of views, I just don't see the Blue Jays really being a favorable landing spot. I do think they're going to offer something big, though. I think they'll start off very strong. The Phillies. I think the Phillies are interesting. I think they can be a bit of a dark horse, right? Middleton's the owner. Middleton wants to win. I think the Phillies, remember the Phillies, supposedly, they were getting in on the Yamamoto sweepstakes. And in the end, he went to the Dodgers. But the Phillies all of a sudden jumped in on that. I don't know what their offer ended up being. Maybe someone else has that. I don't remember seeing a report on it. But I think the Phillies could end up being pretty middle of the pack. I could see them putting down something pretty decent to start things off. And then, of course, you got the Dodgers. Now, when it comes to the Dodgers, I don't know. I just think they already have so much money. I think they're basically hanging back here. I think they're basically a team where they'll put something down. I think they're maybe looking for a bit more of a creative offer, in my opinion, right? Maybe they could do the deferrals. I don't know if Soto's going to really want to go for that. I could see them maybe doing something like, okay, we can do like a 10-year deal. We'll pay you like $60 million a year. We'll give you an opt-out after the third year. And then you can go back out into the market then. I could see the Dodgers being strong on that, right? I could see them focusing more on the terms. I think terms are going to be important no matter what. But I think the Dodgers, they're going to go pretty heavy on the terms. That's just my opinion on that. But yeah, kind of wrapping this up, I think the Mets, they're going to come out swinging in the very beginning. I expect Cohen to be very aggressive from the get-go. The Yankees, I think they're going to be more, they're going to play, pretty conservatively in the beginning. Blue Jays, I think, will be aggressive. I think the Dodgers, yeah, they're going to be creative. Now, when it comes to the Red Sox, excuse me, what are the Red Sox what are they going to do? I mean, listen, I think you have to be aggressive, right? I think they know, come on. We know the Mets are going to be there. Obviously, they're going to start strong. I think the Red Sox have to throw a good punch in the beginning. I think they have to. I think what they need to do is put in an offer that's going to just put them in the game right from the get-go, right? Don't be going out there trying to be cute, but don't be, and I don't think they will. I think they're going to be very strong. I actually wouldn't be surprised if they put down the same offer as the Mets. I wouldn't, I don't know. I don't know if we're going to hear any of these reports or anything like that in this week, but let's say the Mets throw down 650 to start things off, 640, whatever in that range. I wouldn't be surprised if the Red Sox matched it. I wouldn't. I think they're going to be aggressive here. I think for the Red Sox, are they going to tap out? That's where I'm at with them. How long are they going to go? Are they going to hang side by side with the Mets? So I expect them to be aggressive in the beginning as well. those are my thoughts, right? I think the Red Sox are here to play. The Mets are dangerous. I think the Yankees are going to be dangerous in the end, right? Because they're gonna pop up in the end, right? Right now for me, the Blue Jays, the Dodgers, the Phillies. I don't know. Maybe the Phillies. The Phillies are that one team where I wonder if they just say screw it, let's just do it. You know what I mean? For me, I think the top three have to be the Mets, Yankees, and the Red Sox at this point. So yeah, those are my expectations. Those are my guesses. I don't have any information. I don't have any sources or anything. I'm just basing it off of what I'm thinking in my head. I'm probably dead wrong, but what can you do? But let's move on here. We had another story pop up today. And we got a little Rafael Devers in the news, right? Perhaps the future half, the other half of a 1-2 punch of Soto and Devers. Man, could you imagine that? Juan Soto, Rafael Devers in that lineup back to back. Oh man. But we had some big news today, right? We got an article from Sean McAdam. When did Sean McAdam post this, by the way? This was this is this morning, right around 10 a.m. He put an interesting quote in here, right? Well, not a quote, but a part of this. Don't rule out some Red Sox interest in Nolan Arenado. There's been, I think he made a typo here. There's been at some internal talk. I wonder if he meant at least some. There's been at least some internal talk about moving Rafael Devers off third base at some point. And Arenado is viewed as a potential plan B. Cardinals, watching payroll carefully, wouldn't be opposed to moving him if a team is willing to take on most of the remaining money. I'll get to the remaining money part in a little bit, but let's talk about Rafael Devers, right? This is definitely quite the debate on Twitter land right now, in Red Sox Twitter land. So I'm going to do my best to give my thoughts here without cheesing some people off out there. We all know the bat is great with Rafael Devers. We know the bat is good. Very good year again this year. A 134 WRC plus, 28 homers, over 138 games, a 4.1 F-WAR overall. We know what this guy can do with the bat. But listen, I have, there's a line in my head I heard a little while ago. Facts are loud, numbers are louder, right? When you take a look at Raffy Devers this year, this is just this year's rankings. Dead last at a 14 qualified third baseman when it came to overall defense with a negative 1.7. Negative 6 outs above average. Negative 5 on the fielding run value. That's just this year. Let's go back to last year and this year. Once again, still sitting in dead last. Out of 11 qualified third basemen over the last couple of years. A negative 5.7 defense. Negative 14 outs above average. Negative 10 on the fielding run value. Go back even a step further. 2022. Once again, out of all these innings, 3,600 innings at third base, still dead last. A negative 4.1 defense, negative 17 outs above average, negative 12 on the fielding run value. Listen, I get it. There's people, I see it. I read it. There's people out there that say, listen, you're paying this guy 10 years, $313.5 million. You're paying him for third base. I think there is an argument, though. I do. Yes, the bat, very good. But the defense, yes, the positional adjustment value at third base is a lot higher compared to DH, obviously. But Raffy, listen, the numbers are not good, right? Yes, he did make some good plays this past year. He did at the end of the day. But listen, you're looking at it from a consistency point of view, the routine plays. Raffy has trouble compared to the other third baseman in the league, right? I don't think it's completely wrong to say that there are better options out there for third base. I can understand where people are saying, yeah, you're paying this guy a lot of money. Yeah, you want him to play out in the field. But then again, I also look at this part too. Over the last couple of years, Raffy Devers has also missed time in the second half. He just missed time this past year because of something that happened in the field. He hurt his shoulder in the field. So, well, now, because when you think about it from that point of view, well, now he's missing time and he's not even giving you any value, right? So I think there is an argument for him to be moved off of third base. I don't think it's crazy to think about. I do think it is something that has been discussed within the organization. I believe that. I do, because, it is what it is at this point. You can look at it from the defensive point of view, the numbers, the metrics, but like I just brought up, there's the durability aspect of it as well. I think, yes, he takes pride in being out there in the field. He wants to be out there in the field. I don't doubt that at all. But listen, if you are a team that's about to go into a competitive window, I at least think there has to be a conversation about it. I'm not saying you have to do it. I'll say this right off the bat. I would rather just have Raffy at third base. That's the most simple solution out of all of it. I would rather just keep him at third base and have him improve. I would rather Raffy just be a good third baseman. However, that's a question mark at this point. The numbers prove it. The durability proves it. It's just there. You can't hide from it, right? We can sit there and talk about it all we want and try to convince ourselves, but there are much better options at third base out there. That's nothing again. I love Raffy. Raffy's amazing. The bat is amazing. That's what you want from Raffy. I guarantee you, I'll say this. If you moved Raffy to DH and this guy was just going off in the first half, I guarantee the people that are disagreeing with moving him off of third base now would be praising it at the halfway point. I guarantee you. They'd be all over Twitter saying, man, what a great move that was. I was wrong. Yes, absolutely. This guy needs to just stay at DH. I guarantee you will see that, right? Especially if you add a guy that can give you better defense at third base. Now, again, I'll get back to what I just said a second ago. I would rather just keep him at third base because, well, he's already there. That's the most simple solution at the end of the day. But will he get better? He did start his offseason a little earlier, according to his agent, who also has come out and said that, he's a third baseman. That's where he wants to be. But Craig Breslow has hinted at it, right? Craig Breslow made some comments not too long ago saying, he's having discussions with him, about a multitude of things. And, that is something. He didn't really say like a yes or no, but he basically said, it's all about the team winning, right? I do wonder if a conversation is going to come up at some point. There's been talks of maybe, let me rephrase that. I got to be careful with that because I don't know if there's actually been talks. What I meant was people on, Twitter have suggested, and even other articles out there, that he could move to first. I personally think, a third baseman should be able to handle first base. But I could also understand that there might be a bit of a learning curve there too. I personally believe, Lou Merloni's talked about it as well, if you play third base, you should be able to play first, right? Yeah, you got to, pick up on a couple of things, but that's where you work at it, right? However, is that the best idea? I don't know. I mean, yeah, there's going to be that learning curve there. You're probably going to have to go through some things. I could see that coming up, right? Where maybe he makes, he makes a goof out there a couple of times and then people are starting to raise their arms, right? I could see that, That's where I think if you do move him, I would put him at DH, maybe play some third at a part-time kind of a role, maybe like 20, 30 games per season, something like that. But this is something to keep an eye on, right? And I'm also going to point this out too. I feel like this is something that we keep hearing, like it keeps kind of popping up a little bit. It's not, and it doesn't go away. And I think that suggests that there are talks with this going on behind the scenes. Like, when you think of stories in the past, I can't think of a specific example at this point, but you would hear just something coming up all the time. And you're like, man, this story just doesn't go away. This is kind of one of those stories at this point, this offseason so far. It started with Ken Rosenthal suggesting where, you move him and you trade Casas and you add Bregman or whatever. It started there. But I feel like every couple of weeks since then, something comes up and something just came up again. We'll see. But let's get to the Nolan Arenado aspect of it. The Nolan Arenado aspect. I mean, I just read this whole thing, talked about that. But the first thing he said was don't rule out some interest in Nolan Arenado. There's been some internal talk about moving Raffy off third, and Arenado is viewed as a potential plan B. I will say, for me, I would say Arenado is a plan C or even a plan D. He's not my first option. He's not. Let's talk about Nolan Arenado. The one thing I keep seeing consistently on Twitter, right? The numbers are declining. He's aging, right? Yes, you're not wrong. The numbers have been declining, hitting 272 on base, 325. Whatever, those are kind of respectable numbers. It's the slugging. You look at the slugging, a 394 on the slugging, only 16 home runs this year. When you take a look at the exit velocity, it's been going down. He was in the 9th percentile in exit velocity this year. Barrels were down. Hard hit percentage was down. X slugging was down. X batting average was still moderate. It was okay. Sure, he was squaring up. Sure, he was getting, long shangle, sweet spot. But batted ball profile, not that great. Right. So, yeah, I see where people, they say he's declining. I agree. Right. I think you are seeing a step back in the bat. I can't disagree with that. The numbers show it. Right. I just said facts are loud. Numbers are louder. You definitely see the numbers. Right. Especially with what he did a couple of years ago. Right. 34 home runs in 21. 2022. I think that was just almost like one of these great forgotten seasons that because when you look at that season that he had in 22, all around, he was amazing, right? Great defense, great bat, a 149 WRC plus, 30 homers with great defense. That was a great year he had. But yeah, the numbers, 26 home runs in 23, still respectable. A little bit of a above average WRC plus at 106, but this year down to a 102. That's right around league average. Now, when it comes to Nolan Arenado, again, he is not my first option. I would say he's a plan C or possibly even a plan D. I think you could even make the argument where if he is a plan D, I wonder if maybe you look at someone like Christian Campbell. That would maybe even be a good alternative. I know that might be pushing the envelope a little bit. I know that might be, being a bit aggressive in a player development, right? I think you could make the argument for it. Maybe he could win the job out of spring training. I've seen people say, why not Christian Campbell, right? You don't want to rush the guy, right? Can't do that. But I do like Christian Campbell. But Nolan Arenado, right now he's a plan C, maybe plan D. However, I will say this, right? Getting back to the decline in the numbers. I agree, once again. Yes. But how do you remedy that? What do you do with that? Well, first thing you can think of, could going to a new environment maybe help, right? When what I mean by environment is not exactly the ballpark. I'm actually speaking about the personnel, right? New voices in your ear, fresh start, new mentality, right? Maybe he gets a bit energized going to the city of Boston, right? Maybe that could come into play. Now, when you think about the actual environment, well, listen. Fenway Park, if you are looking at the declining numbers, I mean, listen, if you want to help fix the declining numbers, I mean, well, there you go. I mean, I see a lot of grays right there. I see a lot of balls that were outs that might actually do something at Fenway Park. Maybe they go off the monster. Maybe they go over the monster. Nolan Arenado pulls more often. Red Sox could do some righty bats, right? That's what they've been looking for this offseason. Yeah, declining numbers. Put him at Fenway Park. Maybe you could turn those declining numbers into an advantage, right? Maybe he gets a little better production at Fenway with the monster. That's something to think about there. But I also point out too, you got to remember, yes, we can look at the stats, but I think, I don't want to speak for everyone. I don't. But I think a lot of people, maybe even myself, this comes into play for me sometimes too. There's a human being there, right? There's a person there, and there are coaches. There is staff, right? There's things in play where maybe you can get better. It's not like that's the one thing, yes, you can look at stats And this isn't just about Nolan Arenado. This is about other guys too. I think a lot of us fall victim where we look at numbers and you think, nope, he's washed. Nope, he's declining. He's done. How many times over the years have we seen guys have bad years and they figure it out? I mean, he's not like, another thing I want to point out with him too, it's not like he's like 45 years old. He's 33. Yes, I get that. He's starting to kind of go into those, mid 30 years. I get that. But it's not like this guy is completely gone or lost. You know what I mean? I think there's still a player there where maybe you can make a couple of adjustments. Maybe you can get something going. And listen, you want me to bring up a good example for all the, for the people in here in the chat? I see a lot of you here in the chat that have been a Red Sox fan for years, going back to the last 20 years. Remember a guy named Mike Lowell? Who remembers Mike Lowell? Anyone? I remember Mike Lowell. I loved Mike Lowell. Why did we like Mike Lowell? Very productive during his time in Boston after getting traded from the Marlins with Josh Beckett as the throw-in World Series MVP. Well, remember Mike Lowell, like I just said, he was the throw-in for the Josh Beckett deal. The Marlins said, take Mike Lowell. This guy stinks. You got to take him. Mike Lowell, back in 2005, let me zoom in a little bit more on these numbers for you. Remember how bad Mike Lowell was in 2005? He had a negative 0.9 B WAR in 05, hit 236, a 298 on base, a 360 slugging, 658 OPS overall, a 77 OPS plus. 150 games. Doesn't seem like maybe there were some nagging issues he was going through that year, possibly, but he still played 150. 31 years old. Arenado's a couple years older, right? But you're thinking, I guarantee people are thinking at that time, oh, he's going into his 30s. He's washed. He's done. He's not going to keep a job in Boston. They just say, he'll be on the bench in Boston within the next couple of years. Well, 2006, the Red Sox didn't make the playoffs that year, but he was very solid. Had an 814 OPS. 07 got even better. 33 years old, had an all-star season and was a World Series MVP. I mean, listen, I'm not going to say Mike Lowell. Also, Mike Lowell, good defender, good defensive player at third base too. Why can't Arenado have a sort of a similar path like Mike Lowell did? I don't know. I've seen it before. I remember when we got Mike Lowell. I still remember it because that was one of my favorite trades of all time. I loved when the Red Sox got Josh Beckett. Loved it. But I still remember thinking, oh, we got Mike Lowell? Well, he's good at defense. Okay, well, all right. That'll be good, I guess. Well, all right. Maybe the bat, I don't know. Doesn't look very good. Wasn't good last year. But okay, let's see. Why not? And look what he did. Why can't Nolan Arenado be that? You know what I mean? That's what I mean. Maybe new environment, have the monster come into play. Maybe something changes there. We'll see. But listen, I would not be surprised in the slightest if we ended up seeing Raffy possibly at DH or maybe a part-time third baseman. Maybe we're a little early on it. But I will say this. This is another prediction. If he stays at third and he continues to have the bad defense, I guarantee it. You'll see it on Twitter. Yeah, man, maybe we should have moved him to DH. Man, maybe we should have. Guarantee you'll see those comments. I guarantee, because now the thought is in people's heads. I think I don't want to speak for people again. I wonder if a lot of people out there, they think of, the thought of moving Raffy off of third because it's so drastic and it's a new idea. I mean, we've all known the defense is kind of iffy, but now that we're actually hearing the conversation, I wonder if it's a bit of a reactionary kind of a thing, We'll see. But I guarantee if he stays at third, and now that the thought is in people's heads, few months into the season, be like, oh man, we should have moved him to DH. Should have done it. then you'll start hearing it. You'll start seeing people start clamoring for it, right? So, in the end, do I think Raffy is going to stay at third? I actually don't know. I don't know, honestly. I don't even have a prediction at this point. I think anything can happen. I think you're probably leaning more towards him staying there, I think. But I think this would be his last shot, I think. Because he did start his offseason early. He got to training. Let's see what kind of shape he's in coming into spring training. But I think this would be the last year, his last shot at staying at third, right? To prove that he can put up good numbers defensively. We'll see. We'll see. However, we did have another third baseman talking about not just Nolan Arenado. Are my buttons working? I don't think my buttons are working. My buttons aren't working, everyone. I'm sorry. But we did have Alex Bregman in the news. John Heyman. Actually, do I have that article from John Heyman? I don't know if I had that article. I think I just have this trade article. Well, there was an article from John Heyman here from this. I think it was on Friday. We'll get to Garrett Crochet in just a little bit. But he did list the Red Sox as a team that has been in contact with Alex Bregman. Sorry, my brain just went blank right there. Alex Bregman, could he be an option for the Red Sox? Could he be an option? Well, if they did move Raffy off a third, Alex Bregman, I think Alex Bregman would be, if you're asking me for, I was talking about plan D and C earlier. I think Arenado, you could make actually even take Christian Campbell out of the equation. I think Nolan Arenado still could be a plan D. No, I don't know. Alex Bregman, I definitely think is one of those guys that you can turn to, right? Depends on what kind of a length of contract he's looking for. That, I think, is going to be the big thing. The Red Sox showing interest, I also think that really shows you something else about Raffy, right? About this whole Raffy story, right? You're seeing the report from Sean McAdam with Nolan Arenado, but now you got John Heyman in the last few days saying Alex Bregman, right? The Red Sox have made a call on him. I don't know, man. I do wonder. But if Bregman were to be a guy that could come to Boston, this is a guy that has been pretty consistent over the last several years. If you take a look at the numbers here, the last 3 seasons, he's been at least a 4 wins above replacement. You have seen the offense decline. Just like Arenado a little bit. So I do get concerned about that. But then I'll also point out the fact too, right? Maybe Bregman, Fenway Park. There is a pull hitter there, right? Taking a look at Bregman. When you look at Bregman with the home runs, all of them went to left field, right? Had some doubles that went out that way too. But this is a guy that makes a lot of contact. Doesn't strike out a whole. That's another thing about Nolan Arenado too. If you did bring in Arenado, low strikeouts, right? And also, I'll point this out too. I would like for Arenado, if they were to bring him in, I think Yoshida comes into the question too. I should have mentioned that. I apologize. If you could do some kind of a trade where you could either send Yoshida back to the Cardinals, or maybe you could do a 3-way deal where maybe another team can take Yoshida. That I think would be great, because if you're able to unload Yoshida in the same deal, I think that makes a lot of sense. Just pointing that out. Yoshida will have to get moved. If they get a third baseman, he is definitely gone. There's no way he stays on the team, because Raffy would probably be the DH, unless they have an idea of him playing at first. I don't know. I highly doubt that. Casas, I think, is a guy they are high on the skill set with him. I just think they're going to hang on to him. I would be shocked if they moved him. I really would, because the upside with him is tremendous. But Bregman, you're getting a guy that's a good defender at third base, very solid, and a guy that doesn't strike out. You are seeing the exit velocity kind of a little bit. Actually, he did increase his exit velocity this past year. He's been kind of middle of the road the last few years. But again, a high contact bat, a guy that can probably use the monster to his advantage, a guy that doesn't strike out. I wouldn't mind Alex Bregman at all. I would not. Another option. We'll see where that story turns, but John Heyman does link the Red Sox to Bregman. Another option, Willy Adames. Willy Adames had a great season this year. Defensively, not amazing at shortstop. Took a bit of a step back defensively. Offense, though, good power. 32 home runs this past year. Had a 793 OPS overall, 462 on the slugging, a good WRC plus as well. Adames has versatility, so I would not mind Willie at all because he is a guy that can play third, right? I don't think he's played it really at the major league level. I think maybe he did in the minors a little bit. I don't remember exactly, but he's willing to play third. But, if you needed him to, Story goes down, well, there you go. You got Adames. I say, are we lagging a little bit? Are we good? Okay, we're good. Sorry about that. But what I like about Adames is that you have that versatility, right? He can play third. Let's say something happens with Story. Well, Adames can just slide right in a shortstop. And then you could have Raffy go back to third, right? So you have that flexibility there. Or he could play second if you needed that. If you needed a guy that could, you need a good production there, right? Okay, we'll slide over to second base. So I like Adames' versatility. Don't like the strikeouts very much. 8th percentile last year. He does walk a good amount, so maybe that helps balance things out a little bit. But Adames, I would not mind him at all. Would not mind him at all. I think he's a good clubhouse guy as well. I have a feeling Alex Cora really likes Willy Adames because Cora likes guys with versatility. I think, I've seen a couple of people out there say Cora is pretty high on Willy Adames. We'll see what the contract looks like at the end of the day. That I wonder is if that's something that could come into play for the Red Sox when it comes to a contract. I wonder if teams, because, he has had a good few years here. But, 23, you go back there. He did have 24 home runs, but the OPS was at a 717. The defense was down this year at shortstop. I wonder how long of a deal he's going to get. If it ends up being where he has to take something, maybe in that 5-year, maybe 4 range, I feel like probably a 5-year deal is what's going to happen with him. I don't know. If I really think about it, I wonder if teams are going to be willing to give him like an 8-year deal, because he has been a little inconsistent. I could see a 5-year deal for Willy Adames. I wonder, for the Red Sox, they usually don't like to get themselves tied up too much in long-term deals. Yes, they did the 6-year Story, but I wonder if Adames, if he's willing to do like a 4 or 5, I wonder if the Red Sox would be willing to do something like that. We'll see, but third base, keep your eyes on that this offseason. It feels like we're so deep into this offseason, but we're not even in December yet. My goodness, there's a lot to do. We got another story here. Let's talk about Garrett Crochet, shall we? Let's talk about Garrett Crochet. Do my buttons work? I don't think my buttons work. Hold on one second. Let me fix this. Let me fix the buttons here. I don't know why the buttons aren't working for me. Here we go. What do we got here? Let's do this, and this. There goes that. And there goes that. Okay, the buttons are working, ladies and gentlemen. And now all of a sudden that's not working. Why is this not working? Oh my goodness, everyone. We're having technical difficulties over here. Technical difficulties. My goodness. I don't know what's going on with that. Hold on. Let's drag that out. There we go. We're good to go. We're in business. Here we go. But Garrett Crochet. John Heyman, he did an article this past weekend on trade candidates as well. And he says here that Orioles, Red Sox, Dodgers, and the Phillies are the big suitors for Garrett Crochet, at least at this point. We also got something from Jeff Passan saying that it's not an unrealistic possibility that the Red Sox could make a move for Garrett Crochet as well as sign Max Fried. The quote exactly is they have the opportunity and ability to do that. They could very easily go and sign Max Fried and then trade for Garrett Crochet. That is not an unrealistic possibility. Now, when it comes to that quote, is that speculation or is that something? Is there something in there that he's hearing? Right. We have seen the Red Sox tied with Max Fried. That is, I don't think that's any bit of a surprise. There have been some reports out there where the Red Sox have made a phone call for Fried. I guess he's been on a vacation or something as of late, so he's going to be starting meetings at some point in the next week or two or something. But Max Fried, I wouldn't be surprised at all if the Red Sox take a look at him. And there was also another report not too long ago, just a few days ago, that the Red Sox and the Dodgers have met with Blake Snell. I've been seeing a lot of people going back and forth on whether or not you would want to have Blake Snell or Max Fried. I have a hunch that the Red Sox might prefer Max Fried. I could see the interest in Snell. I think they would be okay with landing either. I'm making a guess. I wonder when it comes, I think it really comes down to the years with each. I think Snell is a guy, I feel like he's going to end up getting a 5-year deal. I don't think he's going to get a 6 or 7, 8-year kind of a deal. I think the ceiling for Snell is 5 years, right? He's starting to get up, he's getting into his 30s a little bit, whereas Max Fried, he's a little younger than Blake Snell. I could see Fried getting a 6. I think Snell, all right, we saw reports of a 6-year deal last offseason, and with the injuries that he's had over the last few years, I wonder if teams would be willing to give him a 7. I think Burns, because of the durability that he showed over the last few years here. I think Corbin Burns, I think he can get a 7 or 8 year deal. I don't think Snell's going to get that. However, let's say you got Max Fried, Blake Snell on the table, and both of them want a 5-year deal, right? Max Fried, I think he's going to want a 6. But let's say the Red Sox were like, hey, 5 years and an option. How about that, right? Let's say you can be maybe in that ballpark. I think Fried's going to get 6 years in the end. But let's say you got Fried, Snell, pretty similar lengths in contracts. Well, for the Red Sox, I mean, listen, Fried is going to be cheaper than Snell. Snell is definitely going to be more expensive, I think. Snell, as of right now, has the higher outlook when it comes to projections because of the high strikeout numbers that he has. This is a guy that can absolutely go out there and shove if he's healthy for a full season. He could definitely win a Cy Young. Max Fried, on the other hand, I think a lot of people view him more as a guy that's probably going to be. I don't know how do I word this. Max Fried, I think, is, at least for me as of right now, he's like a 1A, 1B kind of a guy. I don't think as of right now he's a clear-cut ace. I think you could make the argument he's more of like a co-ace-ish kind of a guy. I think he can be an ace, but that's where I wonder if the Red Sox think maybe we could get Fried for cheaper and we could take him to the next level, right? What do I mean by that? Let's go back to good old baseball savant here, right? Taking a look at Max Fried. All right. As you can see here, he doesn't get a lot of guys to chase. Strikeouts are kind of in the middle. Walks in the middle, right? Doesn't give up a lot of exit velocity, right? So he gets a good amount of ground balls. That's another thing, too, to think about when it comes back to Raffy at third. If you bring in a guy like Fried who gets a lot of ground balls, you might want to get yourself a good third baseman. I'm just saying. But take a look at Fried with the run values here. As you can see, he's got a 3 run value on the 4-seam fastball. That's kind of, it's okay. You'd want more though, right? Now, if you take a look at the cutter, -1. It looks like he added the cutter back in 23. I don't know where his 22 numbers are. I don't know what's going on with that. But the cutter, funny enough, when you take a look at Fangraphs at the Stuff Plus leaderboards, his cutter actually ranks pretty well in Stuff Plus. He didn't throw it a whole lot this year. He threw 131 cutters, right? He was getting hit a bit, but it's a pitch that has shown good stuff. And I wonder if the Red Sox think, let's lean on that cutter a little bit more. Let's work with that cutter. Let's maybe up the usage of it. Remember the Red Sox this past year? They really decreased the usage of the 4-seam fastballs by a big amount. Big amount. They basically told all their guys, all right, no, you're not throwing a 4-seamer. No, stop doing that. I wonder if they think with Fried, maybe they could get that cutter to start playing a little bit. Maybe start getting a bit more out of it. Maybe start throwing the sinker a little bit more. He had his sinker this year was a better pitch than his fastball, right? Maybe lean on the cutter and the sinker with the curveball, which has been a good pitch for him. And maybe they think Fried could end up taking that next step, right? Where an ERA, right here at a 3.25 this past year, maybe they can get him back to what he was doing 22 when he had a 2.48 ERA over 185 innings. That's what I wonder with the Red Sox and Max Fried. I think Snell is definitely a guy you could go get. I wouldn't mind Blake Snell at all in the rotation, but I wonder if they think maybe Fried could be more of you could tap into something there and he could end up being cheaper and might being a better value signing in the end. I know that took a lot to kind of get to my point there. That's what I think. I wonder if the Red Sox see a better cost value with Fried. They can get him for less and maybe get more. That's kind of how I see it. Garrett Crochet, no question about it. Yeah, I absolutely think Garrett Crochet, that's a no-brainer, right? Young lefty, tons of velocity, good stuff. Yeah, Garrett Crochet makes all the sense in the world. I don't see why you wouldn't go after that guy when you have position player prospects to get a deal done. I absolutely think the Red Sox, by the end of this offseason, I absolutely think there is a chance you see a rotation with Crochet, with Fried, with Houck, with Bayo. I don't see why. Giolito as well. I don't see why you couldn't have that. I think that is a possibility. If I were to lean one way, I think if you were to look at getting one of them, I think Crochet is more likely. I think Fried is definitely a possibility. And I think Snell too. All right. I think the Red Sox could very well come away with two starting pitchers for the rotation, right? They want to upgrade the top of the rotation, right? If you got Fried and Crochet or Snell, beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. But everyone, I know we talked about a lot here tonight. Stacked show here tonight. That went longer than what I kind of wanted. I was kind of hoping to keep it at around, maybe around 30 minutes, and we went double the time here. So that was a long one here. But everyone, I'm going to wrap it up there. I want to thank you for coming out. I see a lot of familiar faces in the chat, right? Tommy, Nicholas, thank you for that. Brock, TD, thank you guys for talking here. Jake Wood, how you doing, my friend? Thank you for stopping by, everyone. Do really appreciate that. Be on the lookout for more news this week. I'm probably going to be doing streams every night this week, right? We're probably going to be having a good amount of news. I feel like the offseason is maybe starting to pick up a little bit here. Soto, I guarantee there's going to be something tomorrow, probably at some point. Keep your eyes out. Keep your ears open as well. But everyone, thank you for joining me here tonight. I do greatly appreciate that. Go get yourself some rest. We got Thanksgiving this week, too. Actually, I take back what I just said. Probably not going to be live every night this week. We got Thanksgiving on Thursday, so probably not going to be live then. I would be shocked. I don't think the Red Sox are going to anyone's house for Thanksgiving like they did with Kurt Schilling years ago. So I don't think that's going to happen. Maybe they can go to Juan Soto's house for Thanksgiving. Maybe David Ortiz. Yeah, he's close with Juan Soto. Lives in the same community or whatever, same building. Maybe they could go to Juan Soto for Thanksgiving. Maybe? No, I'm kidding. Everyone, have yourself a great night, and I'll talk to you next time.